Welcome, rational thinkers and champions of evidence-based reasoning, to the Free of Faith podcast. This is the place where we dare to peel back the comforting but opaque layers of faith-based claims and expose their logical shortcomings. Today's question may be theologically uncomfortable. Can punishable culpability for an offense ever be legitimately reassigned to someone other than the offender? Can someone else be punished for your transgressions? Hang on tight. We'll be riding this maverick of a question into domains of law, logic, and theology. Imagine a man named Henry who has confessed to multiple murders. In the courtroom, his mother stands up and pleads with the judge,
"Please let me take his place. Strap me into the electric chair instead of him."
Now ask yourself, what would a fair judge decide? Would Henry's acceptance of his mother's offer make it fair? Would her willingness to die magically transform the system into one of justice? Of course not. Instead, what we would have is an additional innocent victim and the actual offender set free. That is clearly not justice, but rather its opposite. This is the heart of Christianity's penal substitution. A guilty individual can walk free because an innocent individual is being punished in their place. However, once you reflect on this, the logic collapses. It is no less unjust to torture Jesus in place of sinners than it would be to execute Henry's mother for his murders. Some Christian leaders attempt to justify this by pointing to civil laws, where family members may pay financial debts on behalf of others. But money and prison sentences are not the same. A mother covering her son's civil damages is not equivalent to serving 30 years in prison for his crimes. The attempt to equate them confuses financial liability with criminal culpability, and the distinction is critical. Here is the contradiction of penal substitution laid bare. Christians would universally condemn the execution of Henry's innocent mother. They would call it barbaric and unjust. Yet the same Christians embrace penal substitution when theology demands it, insisting that punishing Jesus on behalf of the guilty satisfies divine justice. This is not a small oversight. It is an explicit rejection of consistency. If justice means holding offenders accountable in human courts, why in divine courts should it mean the opposite? A just society depends on personal accountability. Without it, trust erodes and deterrence vanishes. Punishing the innocent in place of the guilty doesn't just fail to rehabilitate. It encourages cycles of harm by telling offenders they can escape responsibility. Christians recognize this in secular law, but Christian theology demands they irrationally abandon the principle when speaking of God. Think of the reckless driver who kills someone in an accident. His law-abiding friend volunteers to serve the prison term in his place. Would justice be satisfied? No. The guilty driver remains free, accountability evaporates, and the system loses credibility. Or picture the dishonest employee who embezzles company funds. Out of loyalty, the manager pays back the stolen money and serves the prison sentence. Again, the guilty one goes free while the innocent one suffers. Or consider the classroom cheater whose classmate confesses falsely to protect him. When the teacher knowingly punishes the innocent student, the lesson is not accountability but impunity. The willingness of the innocent party does not legitimize the substitution. Theologians offer several defenses. They say divine justice is unique, beyond human comprehension. But if divine justice contradicts the very essence of what justice means, it becomes unintelligible and arbitrary. Others claim penal substitution reconciles God's justice and mercy. But mercy without accountability is hollow, and justice, without personal responsibility, collapses into incoherence. Another defense appeals to the Old Testament sacrificial system, where animals symbolically bore sins. But symbolism is not substitution. Animals had no agency, no intent, no actual culpability. To leap from symbolic ritual to literal penal substitution is to stretch the metaphor until it snaps. Culpability cannot be transferred. It is tied to agency, intent, and action. Intent is not shareable. Action belongs solely to the actor. Justice is served only when consequences are tied to the actual offender. Punishment of anyone else is arbitrary cruelty. Even voluntary substitution does not solve the problem. Consent to punishment does not make you guilty of the crime, nor does it rehabilitate the offender. Here's the unavoidable conclusion: culpability is inalienable. It cannot be reassigned because it is anchored in the very definition of agency and intent. Laws all around the world reflect this foundational tenet of justice. Justice requires that punishment be proportional to the crime and borne by the one who committed it. When punishment is transferred, justice dissolves into absurdity. So, if Christians would never accept the execution of Henry's mother, how can they defend the crucifixion of Jesus as just? The inconsistency is glaring. Justice that punishes the innocent while freeing the guilty is no justice at all. To cling to this contradiction is to undermine the very principles of fairness and accountability on which any coherent notion of justice depends. If this conversation has sparked some questions or even some discomfort, that's a good thing. Questioning is the first step toward clarity. Don't settle for easy answers or platitudes. Dive deeper, explore further, and demand evidence. Head over to Free of Faith to read the full article and join the discussion. Let's keep this conversation going, because the pursuit of truth doesn't stop at questioning. It's about finding answers that actually make sense. Thank you for tuning in to the Free of Faith podcast, where we expose the logical failings of faith and celebrate the clarity that comes with reason. Until next time, stay skeptical, stay curious, and remember, rationality always outperforms faith. Engage reality, and I'll see you soon.